Greetings and welcome to Cyber Focus, your source for timely international business information. My name is Jimmy Bettcher, and our guest today is Ms. Marjorie Wharton. Ms. Wharton is the Strategic Business Services Director at the Cave Hill School of Business in Barbados. Ms. Wharton, welcome.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Thank you. For those of our viewers who aren't familiar with Cave Hill, could you tell us a little bit more about the business school?
Certainly. We are part of the University of the West Indies. Our organization has been in existence since 1991. Our mandate is really to develop the human capital of Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean. We are one of 3 business schools at the University of the West Indies. We are set up to serve Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean. And the Eastern Caribbean really includes the islands of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, including St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, St. Lucia, Dominica, Antigua and Barbuda, and St. Kitts and Nevis.
Okay.
And these are the islands, along with Barbados, that our campus is set up to serve.
Great. Could you tell us a little bit more about your role at the campus?
Certainly. I am the Strategic Business Services Director at the Cave Hill School of Business, which means that I'm really responsible for any of the activities we undertake that are not academic programs.
Okay.
So conferences, workshops, and seminars. Those are the things that we organize. We have a business plan competition that we're going to be introducing as part of our entrepreneurial focus. We have projects, we have consulting initiatives, strategic planning, consultancies that are offered, change management for organizations. Any activity really that is not an academic program. That's what I'm responsible for.
And could you tell us a little bit more? Are there any more socially entrepreneurial engagements that you have with the community at large in Barbados?
Well, what do you mean exactly?
Do you well maybe just perhaps elaborate a bit more about some of the interactions that you have and outreach with the broader business community or perhaps local entrepreneurs in Barbados as well.
Okay. We conduct any kind of training program or consultancy initiative for Barbados or for the Eastern Caribbean.
Yeah.
Really, our projects are, if it's going to be an initiative that's going to be conducted within an organization, we work in conjunction with the organization to ensure that it's customized and tailored to meet their needs. Once it is then meeting their requirements, then we will go work with them in conjunction with them to ensure that that initiative is implemented as agreed. What we have found is that there is a great demand for those types of services. Organizations, whether they are entrepreneurial or they are larger conglomerates or multinational corporations, they're really seeking to have programs that are specifically tailored to the demands of their environment and to the demands of their staff.
Okay. Now, since your role involves a lot of interactions with the broader community, business community in the Eastern Caribbean, could you tell us a little bit more about what entrepreneurship looks like in the Eastern Caribbean?
Well, I think it would be fair to say that entrepreneurship in the Eastern Caribbean is similar to entrepreneurship everywhere else. Some of the characteristics are you tend to have businesses that span the gamut. We have businesses that are small in startup phases. We have businesses that have really progressed to be multinational corporations, and that is true for Barbados and for the entire Eastern Caribbean. We think that entrepreneurship has really proven to be a way of life for the region. It has been necessary because it is part of the development and facilitating the growth of the region. What we are really doing at this stage as part of our thrust at the School for Business, where we are setting up the Center for Enterprise and Entrepreneurship, the thrust is really to make that sector more formalized. We found that it's a very informal sector. People are doing it almost instinctively. But what we are looking to do now is to have it more where we are professionalizing, making it more of a profession and seen to be widely accepted. Entrepreneurship as a way of life.
Okay. You've had an opportunity to interact with a number of entrepreneurs here in Indiana.
Yes, we have.
I was wondering, could you compare those interactions and what you've seen of entrepreneurship here in Indiana with the entrepreneurial environment you just described that's present in the Eastern
Barbados
Caribbean and Barbados?
Eastern Caribbean. Certainly. I think it would be fair to say that the same kind of enthusiasm that we see in Barbados and we see in the Eastern Caribbean, we saw here, and we were very heartened by that. We've seen that there are people here spanning the gamut as well, people who are starting out with their own individual endeavors that they may have started in their bedrooms. We heard from one of the people that we've spoken to. They started it out of necessity when both parties in the marriage were laid off from their jobs, and so they had to start and move forward. We have those kinds of things happening in the Caribbean as well. And then there were able to take their business really to a point where it is now supporting the family completely, and they've grown it to $1 million or millions of dollars as their revenue. And those are the kinds of things that we see in Barbados, and we were heartened to know that we were also seeing those things here. We also think the attitude and the enthusiasm, the willingness to share, and the willingness to be so open in allowing us to learn from their experiences was something that we thought would be useful for us, and is something that is similar to what we see in the Caribbean.
Could you share any maybe perhaps key learnings you've taken away from those interactions, as well as interactions more broadly with Kelley faculty or people at large here in Indiana?
Our key learnings. I think one of the things that we've learned, the key learnings for us, is that things are very similar no matter where you go.
Yeah.
But they are also different in some ways, and I think that difference we see as something that really we can use as a springboard. What we recognize here at the Kelley School compared to the University of the West Indies is certainly the scale and the scope that Kelley is working with is larger than ours. But the interest and the commitment to the development of the community and to the development of entrepreneurship as a way of life is certainly something that we want to replicate across our campus in Barbados and all of our campuses at the University of the West Indies. What we have noticed here is that there is a greater reach and a greater emphasis, particularly from the Johnson Center, in terms of creating innovation across the campus. And that's, I think, one of the key things that we want to do as we go back. With our Center for Enterprise and Entrepreneurship, we want to be able to have that same level of innovation occurring across the campus, that same kind of in-reach, as Dr. Karatko referred to it.
To change topics just a little bit, but to stay on the topic of entrepreneurship in Barbados, let's say you have an Indiana business person who's interested in perhaps getting involved in a business in Barbados, or starting a new enterprise or investing there. Do you have any advice or suggestions for that person as they're maybe starting that process of thinking about whether or not to get involved in business in Barbados?
Of course. First of all, we'd say come now. We're always welcome to have people who are interested in investing in Barbados. One of the things that we would say to them, we think that it's an environment that's very similar to here. You certainly have a population that's highly educated. You have a population that's really committed to growth and to development and to working with the organization. We have entities that are set up there that are really open to encouraging investment and to helping external investors start their businesses and start their initiatives. So we think that it would be the kind of environment that would be very welcoming and very useful for any person, really, from Indiana or from anywhere who wants to come into Barbados and to invest. I think that perhaps some of the things that it would be useful for them to perhaps identify some of the areas that perhaps are the key areas for growth. One of our major areas for growth is services. There's looking also to be more development in the areas of technology, medical, heritage, those kinds of things are what's being developed right now. So I think to do that kind of investigation first is probably a good starting point. But other than that, come on down.
All right. Well, Ms. Wharton, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate
You're welcome.
the insights that you were able to offer us. And I certainly hope that you enjoy the rest of your time here in Bloomington.
Oh, definitely. I have no doubt.
And especially now that the weather is starting to warm up a bit more.
Yes.
Yeah. But so thank you for tuning in, and I hope you learned something about the important international and entrepreneurial work of the Kelley School of Business. If you have topics that you'd like to discuss in future cyber focuses, please contact the Center for International Business Education and Research. Thank you.